what's up with coaching? Like drones, we don't know what's up with them. This, you have to like punch the wall through, but this other wall, you might want to get around it. And it will tell you all that, but you're here. It doesn't help you. You will still be at the same spot. Oh, you know, it says in the book, you should do this. That's what makes that 10 times faster learning curve. He says some good thoughts, but he thinks that he's so good. Hello guys. So today I wanted to talk about being coachable. Like what it is, why you might want to be coachable, what kind of problems you might face with being coachable, even problems that you might not even think about. And really, like what's up with this coaching? Like why so many people talk about coaching? Why can't you just like stay at home and like read all these books and watch all these videos? What's up with coaching? Like why is it so good? Because I always usually tell people that, especially people who are really trying to transform their life into something very different from what they already have. I'm not talking about just like quitting one job and going to other job of like the same style. I'm talking about really transforming, like increasing transforming the way your life plays out right now, like in a big way. I always say that people should go and do coaching. There is books, there is videos, there is just like talking to your like people in your life as well, trying to change that way. It's all very good. It's all like, it all works. But I still tell them that they should go and take coaching, because the effectiveness of coaching per like time and energy spent in it is, you can't even compare it to like reading books and stuff like that. And just so you can relate to this video in the best possible way, when I'm talking about coaching, people use very different words, and I've actually heard some people say things like, no, I don't like coaching. Coaching is something bad. What I have is I have a mentor, and he teaches me all the stuff about my life, In like for the purposes of this video, let's just say they're all the same. Coaches, mentors, teachers, even like therapists in some degree, benefactors. Don't get stuck on like what kind of word we use. There is some difference between those concepts, but for the purposes of this video, I'm talking about all of them. So in this video, I'm talking about people who you have in your life, who you can talk to in person, who you communicate with in person, who are teaching you some kind of complicated skill. Like it can be in your job, it can be, some psychological skill, like, feeling happy, or like being expressive, or like, leading people in your career, any stuff like that. Any other like really complicated skill that you can't just like go somewhere and just like learn to do it like in just like 2 seconds by yourself. And specifically in this video, I'm going to be using as an example for what I'm trying to describe, coaches that are trying to teach you like self-development, like happiness, like how to control your feelings, how to perform at your best psychologically in some kind of like complicated task. It applies to all kind of coaching, but I'll just be using this as an example. So let's crack right onto it. So if you are into self-development, it's very likely that you very often you see other people who maybe are not into watching videos like this, who are not into reading books about it, who are not into changing like how they perceive life. You likely see them as like very different people. Here there's I and my friends who's like into self-development, who's trying to get conscious, who's trying to increase our consciousness, who are into learning how to control our behaviors, our feelings, who are into like changing the course of our relationship. And then there's these other people who are just like, drones, who are just working on the same job for 30 years, who are just, there's like, we don't know what's up with them, but they basically don't try to change their life in some way. Here, I would like to, even just for this video, let's try on this concept that there is nothing inherently different in people who are into self-development and people who don't read books and watch videos and take coaching. In fact, on the deep level, they are all kind of the same. Like all people want to improve. All people already inside them, they have a drive that wants to improve their performance in some part of life. Now, they might be not conscious of the ways that it can be improved. Like some people, maybe they don't even understand that they can change how they feel. Some people maybe are suffering through their entire life and they don't even get the idea that they can work on that. But I'd like to assure you that these people, on some level, they still have a drive to like improve their life and improve themselves, improve their own performance in some part of life. Even though the parts of life where they're doing it, it might be very different from yours. Now, why I'm even talking about this is because I'd like to introduce this concept of being coachable. Like you have probably already in your life taught yourself some kind of very complicated skill, which from the beginning, it wasn't even clear that you could learn it. If you take, for example, dating, there's many people who have actually like learned expressing themselves sexually and romantically within the area of dating. And before they got any results with that, they didn't even realize that this could be something that can be worked on. Because you don't realize that it's a skill that it's something that you actively do. And I am here to propose that being coachable is actually a similar skill. There are very basic skills like using like a chainsaw. It's like a very like basic physical skill. Then there are like more, complicated like meta skills of like, how do I build my relationship on my workplace so that I will, both work on my best, but also will have the best chance of coming up higher in the hierarchy of work and having a bigger impact on both lives of people and, your own life within that work. You see how that skill is kind of like, it's like a deeper skill. It's a more complicated, advanced skill, which you can't even really, like, many times you can't even describe that skill on paper, just like in 10 minutes. And these skills, there are like more and more advanced and deep skills in life. And I'm asking you to try on this idea that there is an actually even deeper skill that goes through all areas of your life, which is being coachable, which is being open to learning these other complicated skills from other people. Not learning them from books, not learning them from videos, but learning them actively through communicating with other people. What I'm simply saying is that people who are not into self-development, they just don't have this skill. It's not just developed in them. So every time that they come in contact with someone who they could learn something from, even if this person is willing to help them, they don't have the internal capacity to like listen. They don't even try on these ideas that they are getting from other people. They just lack this skill of accumulating knowledge and information from someone in a live setting. Why is it beneficial to think about it this way? Because there is nothing wrong with these people. There is nothing inherently different about them. It's just that they lack in this skill. And if it is a skill, if it works just like any other skill, it means that it's not binary. It's not like you're into self-development or not into self-development. It's just that there's like this skill which you can develop within yourself. And even if you are already learning some stuff, it's very likely that you still lack something in that skill, because it's not like you are coachable or you're not coachable. There is like degrees into that. And on any point in your journey, it can be very beneficial to increase even that skill. Because if you increase it, you will increase the speed of acquiring all these other skills, And I also think that this skill of being coachable, like learning that skill has kind of its own like hidden dangers or like hidden pitfalls that you can fall into, which are not present at all if you are just learning stuff from books. So you might be there, already working on yourself, already learning a lot of stuff, but you might be just doing it from like books, videos, or you might even be doing it from coaches, but you might not be like effective in it. And you are already getting results, but you don't even think to look for these pitfalls that might be stopping you from acquiring knowledge from coaches in the most effective way. And that's what we're going to talk about here. Like, what those pitfalls might be, and how can you go ahead into discovering them and, ultimately removing them so that you can get the most benefit from other people that want to learn, that want to teach you stuff. It seems like realizing and really understanding a lot of ways of how coaching can work is really a big part of being coachable. It's once again, I've talked about it before. It's about understanding the process of learning, understanding how people can learn and how this process works. Because those understanding can really make you see that, hey, here's like this knowledge that I can't really even acquire from books. Or I can acquire it, but it will take much longer time. This is basically how coaching works, is that you can probably acquire the same knowledge, but it just works 10 times faster. A very good analogy, I think, is imagine your life like trying to get out of a labyrinth. There might be different levels of skills that are required for that. There might be the lowest skill. Like first we have the very lowest possible level of skill of getting out of labyrinths. And it's like knowing in your exact position right now, like, do you need to turn left or do you need to turn right? Which is the way out. And then you might have higher level of skills, like, if you are in a completely new labyrinth, which you've never seen before, like, what might be a good strategy to like find the way, Like, maybe you want to start like making markings on the walls of the labyrinth so that you can recognize that you've been here before. Or, maybe you want to start like walk in a certain patterns that might give you a chance to like easier and faster learn where the labyrinth goes. Sometimes it might be, recognizing like which walls are easier to like find a way around and which walls you really should just like punch through and like go through them. And so imagine that your life is one huge labyrinth, which in a way it is. There's a lot of questions in life, there's a lot of skills in life. It can be pretty complicated, let's be real here. A book, if you read a book, even if it's like, world's best book from the world's smartest person, if you read that book, like if you have, let's say like this is your labyrinth, yeah? And maybe it goes on. And you are like in this spot. You're like right there, right now, you have to find your way. But the book that you read, like the labyrinth is so huge that you can't put it all in one book. It's impossible. And then the book, you might get it, but it will be about like this part. It will be the world's best book. It will like give you exact solutions from like, okay, when you're here, you got to do this. If you see, the labyrinth comes like this, you have to like punch the wall through. But this other wall, you might want to get around it because it takes like too much energy and stuff like that. And it will tell you all that, but you're here. It doesn't it doesn't help you. You will still be at the same spot. You will get a lot of knowledge. You will be like, yeah, now I know what to do right there. And it will be very correct, but it won't help you there. Later, if you at some point will get to this part of the labyrinth, maybe you will still remember something from the book and maybe it will be easier, sure. But the thing is, like if you read the book today and then you're in this spot and then you spend the next year on like working through, blah, 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 I'm getting there. After a year, you will forget most of it. On the other hand, if you get a coach, if you get someone who will like actively communicate with you about the questions that you have, they will see that you're here. This is the difference between a book and a coach. He sees where you are. And he can say, okay, here, like this might not even be that hard. Here you might only need like, the lowest practical advice. You got to go left and that's it. Maybe in this part of life, there is nothing deeper to even learn. Maybe there's no deeper answer about it. Maybe he just needs to tell you, like, do this, you will do this, and you will come to a completely another area of the labyrinth where you will use all your other skills. Or maybe it will be like, a deeper part of the labyrinth where you actually need all those like complicated skills. And then he will tell you, maybe you need to go and read this book, But then when you read it, it will be about your specific spot. Everyone's life is a journey, right? We've all heard that. It's a very good way of like putting it. But the thing is, when you're reading books or you're just like hearing someone else's story, there might be like good lessons in it, but it's about their own journey. And the thing is, like, people might start, like, here we have our labyrinth. We have someone who's like starting here. They have learned a lot of stuff on the journey, and eventually they even learned kind of like, they kind of have learned even the deeper skills that will be useful in any person's journey. But it's still, they had to like go there, they got stuck here and like blah, 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 there, like the journey goes this way. But your journey starts in a completely different spot. You will get some value from almost any book, but the thing is, if you work with a coach, he sees that you're here. And usually these people, they know about different life stories. That's the point of being a coach. And they can say, okay, here you need to do this. Like if it's a good coach, then you will be able to apply this stuff directly, and you will learn it, not as a concept, not as a book, but you will learn it as an actual skill that will help in your life. And sometimes it's even very hard to see, because this labyrinth is not uniform. It has like different parts. Some part you might get out of it like in a very easy way. For some part you will have to like learn to punch through some walls. Some other part you will need to learn the patience to like go around it and actually learn what the walls are. Instead, you are like reading books about other like complicated parts of the labyrinth, which like teach you all these like complicated skills about like solving the huge problems which come later on, and they don't help you at all because they don't apply to this part of the labyrinth. So yeah, this is what you get from like working with coaches, as opposed to like learning everything about life first and then starting your journey. And really, this thing about like being coachable, it seems that sometimes it's just so easy as to like asking questions. Being able to ask the questions that you truly care about. Like one thing that always surprised me, like when I started on my own journey, is that I would come to like old friends and I would say, oh, I learned this and I like had this success and it was like amazing. And those of them who sort of like weren't coachable, they never asked how I did it. Like they might have asked, like some of them sometimes were like happy for me, or they were like, oh yeah, that's awesome that you did that, like that's super cool. And like even if they didn't try to like put me down, as if they weren't even like jealous or anything like that, I kind of saw that they had like the same problems in their life. There wasn't even this question like, how did I do it? I know that sometimes the question is not enough. Like sometimes you have to go through completely other questions. Sometimes you have to do it in a completely different way. But like, if there's something that you want in life and you meet a person who did exactly that, if you are not interested, if you're not creating this interest within you, like how did they do this? Without it, it will be very, very hard for them to learn it. It's almost like they can't even point to the thing that they want. Or rather, like they can't even point to like how do they even find what they want? How to ask questions, how to ask questions that will be related to you. The next level might even be, how to ask questions which are related to you, which you will be able to connect to this person, which this person will be likely to answer, and so on. But like even just asking questions, seems like a trivial thing, but many people don't do that because they're not coachable. They lack this skill of believing that you can learn something from another person. And really the big thing you have to realize is that most of the time, aside from a simple lack of like being able to ask questions, the thing that stops you is actually your ego. Because usually the kind of like responses you get from like when you advise people, to take up coaching or like therapy or stuff like that, it's things like, oh, I don't need this. Oh, it's only for fuck ups. It's for people who have real problems. Or even more specifically, people will like, if I like in my experience, if I tell them, go to this guy, he's like amazing. They will say, oh yeah, like I've seen some of his stuff. Like, he says some good thoughts, but he thinks that he's so good. Or like, oh yeah, like he's a bit condescending. You know, it's like all ego-based. Ideally, if you want to learn something from a coach, you shouldn't even be like, why do you even care if he has ego? Like, you want to learn from him a specific skill that he has. You know, as long as you can somehow see that he has that skill, it doesn't care if he has ego about it. Because it pains you to go to someone who has a big ego about something and like ask them how to learn a specific thing. But it's just your own ego, you know? It's not a legitimate reason not to do it. It's just your beliefs about whether you're like a bad or a good person if you need to learn something. This thing usually sits pretty deep in people up until, you know, the point where you just give them like a simple advice with like no ego connotations of it, and they can't even hear the advice. They can't even go try to do it. The only thing they hear, oh, so you think I suck at this? You know, you tell them like, oh, let's just try this thing. It's amazing, and they're like, oh, so you think I don't like? You think I don't know that, or like you think I can't manage this thing for myself? And they completely miss the information. And this is also part of being coachable. Like, if you want to learn fast, you gotta give up your ego. Like, the ego is what stops you from learning, because, you know, ego, even if you go a bit deeper on this, like, ego is an image that you have of yourself, that you are sort of like in love with this image more than you are in love with yourself. But in order to learn something really new, in order to go and create a new part of yourself, because it's only under that image that you will actually learn the actual skills to be like that. It's not in the image itself. The image has to go if you will have any chance of filling that image with actual new part of you. So this is where you'll really have to take a leap of faith, because your ego image that you have to let go, it doesn't actually show you what exactly is that you're trying to learn. The thing you're trying to learn is your blind spot. This is a skill that you don't have. And especially if it comes to really complicated life skills, it's very hard to know what you don't know. Because it's one thing if you already know some kind of deep skill and you are trying to sort of like add new small parts to it, because you already have like the big picture. You can already see, okay, here I'm missing this. It's being able to work on this, and maybe you already know what kind of exact steps you need to take to learn that specific skill. But when it comes to learning new, huge skills, which you suck at right now, all of that area of that skill, this whole area of the labyrinth will be new to you. The only thing you might have is like its name, an image of some person who has this, or an image of yourself in the future when you have this. Like an ego image. But the thing is, this ego image, it doesn't contain what you actually need to learn it. So not only do you lack this skill, you lack any kind of representation in all of your psyche of what the skill actually is, of how it is to be able to do that. So that's why if you're relying on books and stuff like that to learn those skills, it will be very hard for you and it will take very long time, because by choosing books and by even understanding specific parts of books, you will be still in the shackles of your ego image. You will still have those blind spots, and those blind spots will not even let you see the information that is in the book. Whereas when you're with a coach, if they tell you something and you don't really understand it on a deep level, the book doesn't do anything in that situation. The book is still there, you know, next page, whatever. The coach will see that. They see that. They will, at the same time, directly tell you, you still haven't gotten it. You still need to come back to the same thing. That's when your ego will reactivate, by the way. That's when you will feel all that pain that have stopped you from going to a coach in the first place. But that's another story completely. But the fact that a coach can actually do that, that's what makes that 10 times faster learning curve. And just to give you a bit of like historical context, and also for those of you whose main reason for not going to coaches is that you think that it's only for losers, that it's only for people who have real problems. If you look at the graph of how successful people are and how much coaching they are paying for, how much they're investing in their own education with real live coaches that talk to them, the graph will not show that most successful people are never coached. It's the other way around. A more successful a person is, the more they spend on their coaching, the more they try to find opportunities for coaching, the more different coaches they have talked to in different areas of their life. The really successful, big shot people, for them, spending millions on some hotshot coach, not that you need to do that. I'm not saying like that's the holy grail. I'm just taking it as an example. For them, it's a done deal. For them, it's just common sense that they do that. Like world's top coaches, you can't even pay for them. You can't even get on their list because they won't even listen to you, because they are reserved for people on the top. You can think of whether like that's a good thing or bad thing. I'm not talking about it now. I'm just saying coaching is an inherent part of a successful life. It's like there all the time. It's not something that you do when you have failed in life. You can do that as well and you will have a lot of results. But the more successful you become, the more coaching you will need. So the faster you start, the better. And to give even a little bit more of a context, especially within coaches that do motivation, self-esteem, happiness, love, relationships, and stuff like that, is that this phenomenon, coaches that kind of like just teach you, you just go to them and they just teach you whatever you ask, it's kind of new. But phenomenon of coaching itself is not new at all. It has been going on for thousands of years. It's just a natural part of how people can learn faster. The machine of the human, body and being, that's just how it learns. It learns much better through personal communication than it does through books or other mediums. But the thing is, what happened before there were like, all these motivational coaches that you could go to. This is the stuff that was coached within families. This is the stuff what was close within the structure of the family. People were teaching their kids were teaching their kids, and so on. And people didn't really talk so much about that outside of the families. This is where I think the kind of like stigma that there is about self-development and personal growth comes from, is that the society hasn't actually understood, not all of it, that this is 2017. This is the time where you can actually learn this stuff outside of a family. The process of learning it is not even that much different. It's just personal communication, building deep connections between people, teaching them that way. The process is about the same as it was before, but the practical sort of like realities of it are different. Whereas before, if you didn't have this stuff in your family, if your family wasn't that good at it, that's how you would become. Whereas nowadays, there are other ways for you to learn this stuff because it's taught outside of a structure of the family. And for a very long time, thousands of years, it was even taught outside of the structure of the family already. Take a guess where? The church for a very long time had a monopoly on teaching people how to live with themselves. Self-esteem, love, how to control their feelings. Not only was this a kind of a bonus that you got from church, this was also the main thing that held it together. Because sure, you could say that it was brainwashing people and just like forcing them to go there, but people are not that stupid. They won't go and take up some of the beliefs that they are being like brainwashed with if there wasn't anything in it for them. What was in there for them was the self-development that higher people in the church actually gave them. You notice how, in the older times, if you read books about it, if you, watch movies about it, when people got a problem, they didn't always go to their friends, they didn't always go to their family. They went to their priest. They talked about their problem with the priest, they asked for advice, they asked for coaching. And I don't know if you are religious or not, If you haven't actually been talking to a priest, you might not know this, but when people come to them for advice, it's not like the priest is opening the book and trying to find a passage, that has this exact problem and tells them, oh, it says in the book, you should do this. That might be included, but the main thing that they do is that they coach people. They coach people from their own understanding of how to live life. And yes, I'm not saying become religious, because religion has a lot of other problems. Religions have become very stale and they have a lot of old beliefs that are still there for no reason. But I'm saying that religions are built on coaching. So nowadays you have a much better option of going to coaches which are not indoctrinated in any specific belief system, which can coach you in any advanced life problem. But I'm just saying that it's not even new. This is the way that people have been learning how to live life for thousands of years. As the last example, think about all these people that go to Scientology even. It's very, it's not secret that the Church of Scientology has some questionable things. There is a lot of documentaries about them. There is a lot of information of what happens at the later stages of the church.
Think about those people out there.
And yet, they still get new people who go there. And it's not people from the street. It's successful people who have money, who have resources, who have everything. Why do they go there? The first steps in the Church of Scientology provide so good coaching that these people feel so much better about their lives that they even risk taking all the shit with the coaching. Imagine how much of an impact this coaching must do in their lives if they agree to that. So basically, in a way, religious practitioners, but especially, the higher priests, the people who were spreading the message of the religion. And I'm not talking about Christian church only, of course. I'm saying this is what all religions are based on. This is why they even were created, in fact. But the first priests in those churches, they were actually first psychotherapists. They were first coaches in the world. Then, of course, they had to cover it with all sorts of other things. But you're lucky. You live in our time. You don't need to take all that. So basically, do realize that coaching is the fastest way possible to learn the deep, complicated skills that you're trying to learn. Find people who can help you in that. Find people who can coach you. Invest in yourself. Spend this time and spend this money on learning this stuff. You can still, of course, read books and, of course, watch videos on YouTube, as I want you to. But do include coaching in your self-development process. If you don't do that, you are likely slowing your life down, slowing development of your life at least 10 times. And another thing that we talked about, try to be coachable. Try to find the things that stop you from being coachable. Are there some thoughts about the ego of the coach? Are there some thoughts about how you don't even want to do it because it feels like you're loser for just going there? Find all that stuff. Try to let go of it. See where it stops you. And take the steps necessary for doing coaching, which is asking questions, figuring out what you want to learn, asking people. If people are giving you advice, try to get it as advice. Try to see where you maybe are missing the advice because of your ego thing. Try to reverse that process. If you follow the steps, you will increase the results in your self-development, about 10 times. That's my personal estimation. So anyway, I hope this video helps you. Don't forget to subscribe, put in likes. It helps our channel a lot to put out new content, new videos. And I see you guys next time.